Alex knows this. My freshman year, I was supposed to go to Ursuline. So I had this big thing that I'm going to Ursuline, right? Track season comes around, 8th grade year in Volney. I get an F in history. I'm ineligible to play high school football. I lost 15 pounds and went and played Little League my freshman year of high school. I played for the Eastside Broncos. I played on a 10-0 team Brad's senior year, right? We was loaded. We was loaded. We was loaded down. Line loaded. Running backs loaded. Wide receivers loaded. Linebackers loaded. Secondary loaded, right? I've never ever in my life seen a practice as hard as a Ron Burdick double session. 7 to 5 and can't leave, and you got to lift while you eat is insane. It's insane. Like Justin Hood played 2 years. His junior year, he played with me. We was loaded down. Line, running back, linebacker, right? We was loaded down, right? The year after I leave, all the superstars is gone, right? And he put up astronomical, crazy numbers.
We're back with one more down, and we have a young man that I've known for a long time, 20 years. Um, uh, Coached him and evolved into a friendship, and so that's where we are today. And so Ed Mcelroy is with us today, star tailback from Chaney High School. Um, Ed, we've talked a number of times in different platforms, different places. Always entertaining. Good to be able to just talk and just have good conversation, right? Debate back and
Right,
forth and hear
right.
your perspective on things. Um, so good to have you with us, and maybe you could just start off about your origins and growing up in Youngstown and your progression to Chaney High School.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on first. I watched two different episodes. I mean, I was a Sean Penny fan, so when you sent me the Sean Penny thing, I was locked in. I mean, I'm laying in the bed. We're supposed to be watching the playoff game. My Knicks is on. I'm watching Sean Penny, man. Hey, Sean, if you out there, man, you was my guy. You don't even know you my guy. You was my guy.
I
But
sent him,
yeah,
so I sent him the clip when you talked about him on the Cowboy podcast. I sent him, so he was
yeah,
appreciative. Yeah.
yeah, man, that man. As soon as I seen him, I said, man, I'm going to Ursuline. I want to be. If I can look like that, that's where I want to go. I want to be that dude. But but yeah, no, I'm a Southside guy. I'm a McElroy, so originally we East Siders. Um, but I'm the only one who grew up on the South Side. Uh, I mean, everybody went to East. I mean, I kind of broke the mold a little bit. Me and my sister ended up going to Cheney. Uh, Grew up. My mom's originally from the South Side, so like gradually, like my mom went to South, so I kind of stayed on the South Side. I grew up going to Cleveland school. My mom was a school teacher and a principal. Um, my pops ended up after retiring from working in New York Telephone Company. He came home uh, and bought us a nice home, and we moved a little further up. So we kind of I ain't gonna say we got out the hood, but we was one street away from Boardman. So back then, late '90s. That was mid '90s, going into the late '90s. It was special. You know what I mean? It was a little different. You know what I mean? But my mom was still big on if I teach somewhere. You know what I'm saying? If it's good enough for me to teach there, it's good enough for y'all to go to city schools. So I stayed in public schools. You know what I mean? It was kind of rough being a teacher and a principal's son. That's always because a little bit rougher on the discipline at home. You know what I mean? And everybody's your mom's friend when you when you in school, so you can't never act up. Even when you want to cut it up with your boys, you got to be mindful. Like they know your mom real tight, so that part. Uh, I played for a bunch of numerous little league teams. Football wise. Played for the Penguins. Played for the Sons of Thunder. Um, Played for the Redmen, and I played for the Eastside Broncos. So I had, four different, like little league experiences, man. I played with a lot of good dudes that I felt would have been high school stars. And because of our community, man, like it seemed like it never really translates. Your big superstar in Little League tend to never pan out to be the superstar in high school. I mean, from my era, I can say that. I mean, I can go back to, countless names. Like, y'all can throw some names out there, and I can tell you probably his Little League background, and you'd be like, damn, he wasn't a star? Like, nah. I mean, think about it. Like, Maurice Clarett played center for the Braves. Like, he wasn't running the ball. He was centering. He was hiking that thing. So, like, if people go back and look at the origin on that, you know what I mean? You would never think that your top running back or one of your Mr. Football was a center. You know what I mean? My man was a center, and like little stuff like when you go and you look um, at the time when I played for the Redmen, they was in the White League. You know what I mean? Like when I played for them, they wasn't in the Boney Rogers League. They was, they played Austintown, Holland, Poland, um, Gerard, played all those teams. You know what I mean? We would scrimmage some of those teams, but it was a little different feel that I learned from the Vonnie Rogers League. So, and I did it with my son, and it's a little different now because they don't have it. I did it with my son. The same thing that I learned because it was what I knew. You play in the Vonnie Rogers League because you play against the best talent and you get tough. You know what I mean? You don't have to be the best dude, but it make you tough being out there. The practices is grueling. You know what I mean? The games is live and direct, and I mean, kids is out there hitting and running fast and shaking moves, and I mean, and it's all out war. You know what I mean? But then you go on, you play with the Redmen or like the West Side Patriots or something like that, and the structure's different. You know what I mean? The football's different. You ain't getting dressed on the sideline. You in the locker room. Your fans are sitting in the stands. They're not standing up. You know what I mean? They can't hear what's going on the sidelines. Like, so all of that takes precedence a little different. So now you see a scoreboard. You don't see that when you play down the Vaughn. You know what I'm saying? You just know what the score is. You know what I mean? You got guys that's running the chains. You know what I mean? You ain't got the same referees every week. You got different people, and then you actually running different football schemes. So I took a lot from Boney Rogers with being tough and like learning a whole bunch when it comes to the total athlete. Then I'm getting coached up in a different league. You know what I mean? So now the schemes is starting to come into play, and I'm learning. So I think that's what helped me in the translating into playing middle school and going to high school, because now even the dudes that I knew that was maybe a little bit better than me, or you know I felt like was going to be the superstar, the next best thing, and then high school come around, and you know a lot of them dudes is nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? Because it's different. Practice is different. You know what I mean? Everybody ain't kissing your butt because you just star. You know what I mean? I haven't met a kid yet that that played. I mean, the program that I was in that came to Chaney, and you just automatically was that guy. Nah, everybody worked to be that guy. You know what I mean? I remember when Brad wasn't the guy. You know what I'm saying? I remember when Brad first got there because I played for the Sons of Thunder. Brad was on the pound above me. Brad always played QB. His first year playing for Chaney, he was a tight end. Tondi Smith was the quarterback. You know what I mean? So think about that dude could have quit right there. Imagine that. Imagine playing QB from the 105s, the 115s to the 135s, and then you come to high school because he played all the way up until all the way up until high school. Then you come to high school and all you know is QB, and they're like, oh nah, you big, you gonna be a tight end. Tight end. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's easy for a kid to say, "Oh man, the hell, I'm gonna go do something else. This ain't for me." You know what I mean? So like, you know, I mean, there's a lot of guys who don't start out as the guy. And I always tell Dallas, this is one of my biggest mottos. It ain't how you start, it's how you finish. So like, just because you start somewhere, that don't mean that's where you're gonna end up. So like back to me growing up, like I'm from a place where I don't feel like I was the best kid in my neighborhood. I grew up around some really, really good dudes, like big name guys that end up going to the NFL, and like, and now I know why. why I ended up being better. I ended up being uh, a good athlete and a good football player because of the older guys that I played with. They was already next level. You know what I mean? And I was years younger than them. And now, as it stacks up and I become a grown man, I'm like, man, that was the blueprint. It was because I was playing up a talent level when I'm at the crib. We playing, wrap up in the cement, and as soon as you get to the grass, it's tackle. You know what I mean? So we didn't have sports trainers back then. We didn't have, all these clubs and different things that you can go through. And let's just keep it real. Our parents wasn't paying nobody to train our kids. You know what I'm saying? We was going outside. You was wrecking. Hey, you was wrecking until it got dark. It would be pitch black outside. You still wrecking.
So
So,
let me ask you. So as you kind of come up, and I'm sure the training ground is probably the same for your era as ours.
mhm,
It's the rough and tumble thing in the neighborhood, and then you if if you're like I imagine you probably see a lot of the guys that you're talking about that are 2, 3 grades ahead of you starting to go to organized practices. You
yeah.
see them in their equipment wearing their jerseys, day before a game. So for you, what is your first memory of organized football for you where that just stuck with you and you knew like this is for me, this is what I want to do?
Well, it goes back to the Sean Penny thing. So across the street from me, my cousin Brandon Fleshman lived. And then up the street was Jamal Harris. And then up the street was a kid named John and Pat. Pat and John were the white kids, but they was ballers. They went to Mooney. The two black kids down the street went to Ursuline. So, gradually it's like, man, these dudes go to Catholic school. You know what I mean? So I'm still in elementary school. These dudes is in high school. They say, you know, come over to a practice. I go over to a practice at Ursuline High School and I see the best specimen I had ever seen at that time. I'm asking everybody, who is that? They're like, oh, that's Sean Penny. You don't know who Sean Penny is? You don't know who Sean Penny is? Man, I'm watching Coach Roland Smith dog these cats. But I ain't even paying no attention to that. I don't care nothing about that. I see this dude, and he just light years better than everybody out there. And I'm like, man, so if I go to Ursuline I'm gonna look like that and I'm gonna play like that. Oh yeah, this where I'm going. So you got to think, my cousin Brandon and Jamal Harris at the time, and all of they boys, Kevin Poindexter, Brian Murkison, Marcus, all them dudes would come smooth. All them dudes would come over to our block because my cousin B had a car and Kev Poindexter. They was the only two dudes with cars. And back then they had the Vogues and D's, but they was in high school. But so everybody wanted to cling to them, so they would come to my neighborhood. But even though I was a young guy, they would let me tag along. So I'm around a whole bunch of Ursuline dudes, Letterman jackets, all of that. But remember, I think these dudes is great, but they big dog is Sean Penny. So ultimately, if they big dog is Sean Penny, guess who my big dog is? Sean Penny, my big dog. He just don't know it. You know what I'm saying? He don't know it. Like I just bypassed them. Like these still my guys because they my neighborhood. But like I like Sean Penny. Like he way better than y'all. Like y'all can't mess with him. Like I know this. I just seen it myself. So like that was my first. My first time seeing like real football practice, seeing how it went and everything. So then it was kind of like I had it made up in my mind from like sixth grade on that I was going to Earth. I never was going to Chaney. Never in a million years. I wanted to go to Earthston. I wanted Coach Roland Smith to be my coach, and I wanted to be like Sean Penny. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my first real life superstar. Like, how like somebody's like, oh, I want to be like Jordan or I want to be like Kobe. Nah, this was my first real life superstar. You know what I mean? So like when people say, man, who was the best? Who was, and you rate them and this and that and this and that. I can't change what I saw. Sean Penny's still my number one guy because that's just, like that's just what I seen. You know what I mean? Like I love Sean Patton. Because now it's a different. I love Sean Patton. I thought Sean Patton was cool. Like I watched stuff on Sean Patton and all of that, but I didn't get to physically see Sean. I seen stuff for Sean later on, and I was just like, man, Goose was cold. You get what I'm saying? But I actually seen Sean Patton. I mean, I actually seen Sean Penny. You know what I mean? Like with my own eyes, like I can reach out and touch that dude. Like he was out there. So you know what I mean? Like it, just going through that era and seeing a dude like that, and then like the Ohio State thing. Like to me, you know, it was just big. To see a cat from our town, a school I want to go to, and he going to Ohio State. You know what I mean? Like I would have loved to see what he would have end up becoming without injury. You know what I mean? Like because he was like one of the first man childs I seen. And then after that came, like Reese, and then you had Delbert Ferguson. You had like the bigger dudes that could rumble. You know what I mean? Like, and I was never the big dude, so you know what I mean. Like, it was just more so like like just growing up and seeing stuff that you can physically see, you know what I mean? Like now, you have superstars and like you got social media. Like if somebody went from where you was from, you ain't know how good somebody was. There wasn't no social media, you know what I mean? There wasn't none of that. So he was our superstar, you know what I mean? It definitely was mine.
Absolutely, because I think we all have those guys that inspire us. I had my guys the same as you. Figures and guys that their names would stand out. And then what you said, Lamont Finley, he touched
Mm-hmm.
on it earlier, and he put it in a real relatable way. Those guys that you would see in the all city pictures, see on the highlights of the news, they were people that you could reach out and touch. They were people that you could have access to, and they weren't, some guy in a Street and Smith or Sports Illustrated that was far off. This was a guy you got to observe, what his personality was like, his swagger was like, what his play was like firsthand. So when you bring up guys like Sean Patton, I did see Sean Patton play in the flesh, and he was great. And then there's dozens of guys whose names have
Oh,
been lost
yeah.
over the years because time does march on. But if you're a Youngstown kid, especially during those days, you had one, two, maybe even three guys that you wanted to pattern yourself after, or you stole a little piece of what they were doing and added it to your
Yeah.
toolbox.
hmm I mean, me and Dallas talked about this a couple of times. I told him, I think we should either take it to Facebook or take it to a poll, and you go, position by position. I mean, because then you're gonna let the era speak, and yeah, it's going, it can get a little rowdy here and there, but I think it'd be good for the city and for the culture, to say who was the best quarterback 1 through 10. Who was the best running backs? 1 through 10. Who was the best linebackers? I mean, the list can go on. You can even go like who had the best track teams, basketball. I mean, all of that. Like, I mean, didn't the year that you was at Chaney, didn't Sylvester Patton and them win districts in basketball?
Sylvester Patton was a horrible basketball player,
I
but
I didn't
but
say that. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
no, I'll say it.
Right.
I'll say it. I don't got no problem saying he's a horrible basketball player, but you are right. The '93 team, they did
Uh-huh.
advance to districts, and then they beat a good, I want to say, Akron Stowe team,
hmm
and then they lost the next round. But going back to what you kind of touched on, when you talk about ranking players and errors, of course it just always ends up being what you feel is the best from what you've seen. So like Dr. J says, his top five is his top five because
hmm
it's who he saw and who he admired, and I get that. And then when you talk about like the LeBron, the Jordan debate, who's the GOAT, who's the best, why does there have to be a best? That you if you had the privilege to see both of those phenomenal guys, you should revel in just knowing that you got to see greatness. You know what I
Right.
mean? And you're one of those people when it comes to that lineage of Chaney running backs, Chaney players. I'm obviously very proud of what I got to experience being a part of that, especially on the front end of playoffs. So I could look at a guy like you who's 10 years down the line and you're from my side of town. Brad lived right down the street from me. I used to
Yep.
see him as a little kid. And,
Uh-huh.
you can, for me, I can take a lot of pride in knowing that we did a good enough job of setting the bar, setting the standard, setting the expectation that made it okay for Southside kids to come over to the West Side, be respectful, display their talent, get a chance to have opportunities. And then, that tradition, there's nothing tainted about the tradition. We added to the tradition. And then, you get to carry on and do what you love. It don't work out for everybody the way that they want it to. Me personally, I thought I was D1 capable. I ended up D2, had a great career in college, didn't go to the next level, but I'm satisfied because I
Right.
got a chance to continue where some of my friends didn't. I got a chance to get an education where some of my guys didn't. I got a chance to, meet the person that I started my family with. So, just those pieces to the puzzle, everybody's destiny, everybody's destination, it's laid out for a specific particular reason. And then you just when we get back to reminiscing and thinking about the memories, I watch film of myself now. Sometimes I see it with a critical eye and I'm like, man, I was terrible. I had horrible technique in that particular sequence. But if you would have asked me 10
Back
years
then,
ago,
yeah.
I'd have told you, yeah, I was lightning in the bottle. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
For sure. For sure. I mean, that's just like eras. You could go back and look at your prom picture, and you be like, man, I look terrible. But at that time, you was fly as a bug, though. You know what I mean? I mean, you wouldn't dare put that on right now. You know what I mean? You wouldn't dare put it on now, but at that time, you know, and even if you go back to, you might criticize yourself, but you might have been the best at the footwork or whatever you was doing at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I was better
you
than my backup for certain.
yeah, is that you see what I'm saying? So, like that part of it, like that, and the only thing that I say, me and Dallas got on this, and I know that would raise some flags where I went with I said if you've never physically seen someone play, right? The only way that you could categorize it is you go by their number,
Yeah.
right? And guess what? But a lot of people won't like what they hear because you can physically see something and say this dude is way better than him, right? But
But
if they play in the same type of talent, right, and they play for the same amount of years, and one dude's numbers is substantially higher than the others, is he better or not?
but doesn't that go back to my point of, you know, when I started about, specifically running back, right? Like
Uh,
if you got a good offensive line,
mm-hmm,
Ed,
mm-hmm,
1999.
mm-hmm.
What would your numbers have been in 1999 with that offense? And I mean no disrespect to the guys we lined up. We were young. How, how,
I
how,
mean,
how would your numbers have been in 99?
okay, I mean, see, I don't try to listen. I don't want to get in a debate with nobody because I feel like that's what's gonna come. But
No,
I
but,
mean,
but, but my
no,
point is,
no, I see what you're saying. I wouldn't have had the same career that I had
cor-
for
it
sure.
was it,
But
it
yeah,
was
but this
special
is
because it was special.
right. But like, and I'm being 100% honest when I say this.
Yeah.
Like, Brad Smith was the best football player that I played with. Right,
Mhm.
right. And I want you to hear me out when I say this too, Ron. I want you to hear me out. I know I'm about to get some backlash for this, right? Okay. So, so I played on a 10-0 team, Brad's senior year, right? We was loaded. We was loaded. We was loaded down. Line loaded, running backs loaded, wide receivers loaded, linebackers loaded, secondary loaded, right? All right. The year before that, you know, eh, They was okay, right? That's 2 years. Brad's junior year and senior year, right? Justin Hood played 2 years. His junior year, he played with me. We was loaded down. Line, running back, linebackers, right? We was loaded down, right? The year after I leave, all the superstars is gone, right? And he put up astronomical, crazy numbers. So this is what I'm saying. If you go and you look at the tail of the tape for 2 years, junior and senior year, Justin Hood had more touchdowns, more yards, more interceptions, and more tackles than Brad Smith. And hold on, and they both had loaded down teams 1 year, and 1 year they didn't. But the 1 year that Brad didn't have a loaded down team, what was their record, Coach Saunders? What was they, 6-4 or 4-6?
I maybe 4-6. I can't remember.
Okay,
But one of the
but
two. One of the two. One of the
one
two.
of the two. But Justin Hood went 9-1 and win the playoff. Hey, and was putting up crazy numbers.
Well, but what you know what though, when you say that though, you have to consider progression, development, and then breaks, right? So, we could, if you talk to any of my teammates, we would tell you we run through every team that you ever played on, because we think we're that good, right?
Right, for sure.
You're gonna defend your error, right? Because
Right. No, I mean, I just got in an argument with a dude about that. Right.
But some of that is, how much is on you as an individual. So, I know Justin. It doesn't surprise me. Good, solid guy, heady guy. What he did in college showed.
Well, he learned that from, but he learned that from Brad, though.
Right.
Now, he learned that from Brad.
So what I'm getting at is, sometimes that success is built on, what you've been exposed to. You know what I mean? So, and then, some guys get the benefit of having that extra one or two guys to take the load off of them, and it makes it easy, and I look at the Alabama quarterbacks, how many of them are great at the college level and then struggle in the NFL. And then you go, well, why is that? Well, you have to at some point think about, well, it's not so much the guy that's slinging the ball, it's the guy that's making the tough catch. It's the guy that's making the extra effort after the catch or yards after contact. So, everything is about perspective. And, if it's great, it's great. If you're cream, you're going to come to the top, no matter what situation you're in. Even if you're on an 0-10 team, there's some guy that's a standout on that 0-10 situation.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I mean, my thing is maybe Marcus Patton was the greatest running back in Chaney history because of what he did with what he had, and I say that on purpose for Sylvester and for Ed Mack. But you know what I mean? So like, I get it. And my point was, I witnessed what you did. So like, I know what you're saying, but I saw it. Just like you said with Sean Penny. Like nobody could ever take away what I witnessed, what I was part of, what I helped.
Oh, for sure.
Piece to contribute.
Listen, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I feel like Justin is better than Brad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for people who didn't see either of the two, and then you were to go and look at the numbers, and you would measure the numbers. Yeah. So when you go, so I'm a gambler, right? Like I sports gamble, right? So like how he said that his team, he would put his team up versus anybody's team. The only way that you could gauge this is they would analytics or whatever way you have to do it. You have to do a number, and it would come up to see whose team would be favored. And basically, whatever team that would probably be favored would probably be the team that they would say would win, but the game would never happen. You get what I'm saying? So if you looked at your class and say y'all was only averaging 30 points a game, right? But y'all gave up 10 points a game. And then you took a class, now I'm taking a shot at you. Now you take a class
right? Because
like
that's
my
4 points
class,
way too many. There's a
right?
field goal in there that should never happen.
Right. But then you take another team, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I changed my earphone. And you take another team and say they're scoring 45 a game, but only giving up 7 points.
Me, I'm gonna ask, who are you playing? Me, I'm gonna ask,
Oh
how
yeah,
far
for
did
sure.
you go? You know what I
Well,
mean? I'm
no,
not
for
just
sure.
that surface guy. I'm gonna
Oh
look
yeah,
at
because
details.
that all matters. Yeah, that all matters.
But honestly, like you said, you could never get a true answer. You know what I mean?
No,
Unless you
no, they
unless you put those guys head to head. So
yeah,
so
and it'll
me,
never happen. The A is too far gone, and
I
even
think
it. Go ahead.
I think all the advent of AI, I think an artificial intelligence piece is going to come out to be able to do this. You
I
make a
think so
lot of
too.
money, a lot of
It,
money.
it will. I mean, because what they would do, they would simulate the game. They would
yeah, right.
simulate how they would simulate the style. They would simulate,
Yeah.
it would simulate everything. It would even go so far to it would go to how big this line was versus
Hey,
that D line.
this is a huge money moment right now. Seriously, you think about it. If we could come up with a fantasy football vintage app that you could
Right,
bet on,
right.
billions.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, okay. So quick.
We gotta cut this part out so nobody steals it.
Okay, all right, but look, sidebar. So the kid, I was telling you guys this earlier. The kid from Urson said that his team would have beat our team, and I said, "Do you realize that at that time, our D line, like I understand that y'all was good. You had the Keith Teagues, and this wasn't his. It wasn't his Mr. Football year. It was his junior year. That's the year that the kid was talking about. And I said, do you realize that my senior year team, not my 10-0 team, not my 9-1 team, but do you realize that my senior year team, we had 6'6", 6'7" at one DN. Then you had 6'5", 295 at another DN. Then you had two D tackles, one 300, one 295, and one bench 225 42 times as a 17-year-old. Like I said, you don't even know what that's like. Ed Molina benched that so many times. Do you remember when he did that 225?
I mean, he has
I've
one of the
never
best blocks I've ever seen.
I've never seen I've never seen someone hit 225 that many times at that age. I mean, unbelievable. So, we talking about a D line that's phenomenal on top of you got linebackers that's I mean, we're running a 4-4, so remember, y'all running the ball. Y'all wasn't passing like crazy. Y'all had Paul Kemp. So y'all running. We built for the run. We're not built for the pass. I feel like that's our kryptonite. Like when I played for Chaney, that was our kryptonite. So when you play a spread team that goes 4 wide and we still in a 4-4 defense, you got to understand it's hard because you can't simulate in practice. You can't simulate guys running crisp 4-man routes, combination routes. Who you gonna simulate that with? Your best guys is on defense. So how can you simulate seeing that?
And I think that you can't. And I was gonna say, Ron and Ed, you guys played in the same defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
Right.
it never.
45 roll. Nothing changed.
There you go, right? 45 roll.
Yeah.
It never changed. But we were at a point where defensively it was like, okay, you line up with trips, you know how we're going to line up. And what you said before was, we're still going to stop you,
Yeah.
but when you start matching up skill and talent levels equal out, it becomes a little more difficult to do that.
Yeah,
Playoff
and
time.
but it becomes more difficult because you got to think the further we go in the playoffs, the more you start playing teams that run different schemes than what we used to from our
100%.
area. So our areas
Exactly.
run
Yeah.
first. Then you start playing teams where they're aerial attack, and yeah, that
Right.
makes it rough for an outside linebacker who's used to coming downhill and making tackles, but now he
Yes.
got to cover a slot. And remember, you're
Right.
not going to flop your corner inside and put that that got outside. You know what I'm saying? So you really in a bad position when you think about it. If their three best guys is lined up and trips, and let's say your outside beat could be a player, but all night you want him to get out in the flats with a kid that's maybe a 4-4 guy or a 4-5 guy.
Did you play safety or corner or
For
both?
me, I played both.
Yeah.
Sophomore and junior year, I played corner. Senior year, I went to the
Okay.
single high
So,
free. Yeah.
I mean, both you guys are safeties. I mean, when you see you're in a cover three, or maybe not, Ron. Sorry, I don't want to insult you if I did there. But if you're a safety in a cover three, seeing four verts up the seam against a good team, I mean, that's like
Yeah, what can you? Because you got to think when
thank
you
you very much.
when you playing cover three, you only got 3/3 of you only got your third of the field. So I
Yeah.
mean, you got to listen. And if the quarterback looks you off, if you got somebody that's pretty good and he's
Right.
here, and then he instantly go here as a single high safety, you dead, right?
Right. And then let alone you start throwing in trips with the four verts with that guy going the opposite seam. I mean, and you've never seen it before. It's
Right.
Well,
yeah,
we experienced that against Louisville. That's kind of what undid us in that game was
That's who we lost to too.
right. Our inability to adjust to their multiple sets. But after having some further coaching experience, the college experience, I understand the philosophy and just staying in your base at the time, because when you're talking about high school guys, we're not in Texas, we're not in California where you get a lot of specialization. So I think Coach Pope's philosophy and Coach Burtis's philosophy was if you do something well, it's up for the other team to perfectly execute. And then when you're talking about high school level guys, most guys are going to be one dimensional. So a high school level quarterback is really going to have one, maybe 1.5 reads to not be able to consistently duplicate, and execute pass after pass after pass. Eventually, something's going to break down. And then when you really think about high school games, a lot of it is scores are just big plays or broken plays. It's not really perfect execution. It's more, did this guy out athlete this guy? Did somebody miss an assignment and allow a play to pop? And that's high school football at its finest, even for some of the good top teams, But as you progress up and the game gets a little bit more cerebral, and then you have your audibles, you have your checks, you have your adjustments and adaptations, and then you see these different styles of specialists, one-way players. How many high school teams are both teams playing offense and defense, So it's really just a grinder of who can outlast who and make the fewest amount of mistakes at that level, because a 48-minute game is quick,
Right. Yeah. Well, I heard a guy speak at a coach's clinic. He was the head coach for Aliquippa. You come out there with 40 guys, right? You playing in you playing big dogs, and then you go to the playoffs, and because they're so good, they keep bumping them up in divisions. So yeah, they have won state, but what happens is, like he said, man, week one you play a team that got 90 guys, and nobody's going both ways. So you hammer them. Then the next, but your guys banged up. Remember, you only got 40 guys, and your guys going both ways. Then week two, remember, you got to win 5 games. So then week two in the playoffs, you play another powerhouse. You beat them, you kind of squeak by, but now your guys banged up. Like they didn't play 2 Fridays in a row, they banged up. Now you got week three coming up, and now the competition gets stiffer, and they still got 90 guys or 110 guys, and you constantly playing these guys, but at some point you gonna break down. You driving a Chevette and you racing Corvettes. You know what I mean? You just got your Chevette. You just kept it. You just been running so good with it. But he said at some point, he said they lost the state championship last year. He said because by the time the state game came up, he said the team we was actually better than. If we would have played them earlier versus playing the big dogs before them, he said, man, we would have won. He said, but that ain't how the cookie crumbled. It ended up happening that we were so beat up when we played. He was like, man, my guys were physically hurting when we got to week 5 in the playoffs. Like they were no good because I got a 40-man team, and now I'm putting in guys who only played during the season because we was blowing people out. So now they haven't even played in 5, 6 weeks, and I'm asking them to go versus guys that they really never played against. You know what I mean? And he was like, you lose because you don't have the amount of firepower. And I totally agree with you. Like you know when you got guys that aren't going both ways, man, that's a luxury. You know, could you imagine Coach Saunders if I never played the other way? You know what I really would have wanted, because I wanted this for my son. I would have wanted Coach Burns to say, "Hey, you got 6 touchdowns at halftime. I'm gonna give you the ball like I normally do. I want to see what you can do the whole game." Man, could you imagine?
Right.
I told Coach Saunders. I asked the coach one time. My son didn't have no offer. My son obliterated my stats. He had 45 TDs in a single season the senior year. 45, right? And my son didn't have a scholarship to go play Division I football. I asked the coach, true statement. I asked the coach. I said, man, he ain't got no scholarship. Let him score 14 or 15 touchdowns. They gotta come see that. I don't care who it is. If you read right now, there's a kid that scored 15 touchdowns. You ain't going to check him out on YouTube. You gotta go see him. Even if he ain't Alabama X, you at least gonna say, man, he ain't played nobody, but he still scored 15. That's like a kid scoring 100 points in high school basketball. Yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying is, if you see a kid score 15 touchdowns, in your mind, you like, hey, I got to check it
Well,
out. I don't care what they saying. I got to see it.
they're out there because that was at play in my day. Andy Bladders from Western Pennsylvania. He went to
Mm-hmm.
Wilmington. I think he had 54 touchdowns as a senior. He ended up at Westminster, and it was, he's a white guy, tall, slender guy, played in a very small system out in the rural area.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Westminster, put up the same type of numbers. So,
Right.
To your point, talent is talent,
Right. Right.
and a lot of it just has to do with perception and how people see you fitting in their system, and some of that is out of the player's control.
Right.
You can only do what you can do on the field and make yourself as marketable as you can, but it's up to that program to be able to envision you in their system. I want to kind of get into some of your experience, going through Chaney. You know what I mean? Because if you're coming in as a player, you're in there in '99. Is that your first season that you're playing varsity football?
But Dallas knows this. My freshman year, I was supposed to go to Ursuline. So I had this big thing that I'm going to Ursuline, right? Track season comes around, 8th grade year in Volney. I get an F in history. I'm ineligible to play high school football. I lost 15 pounds and went and played Little League my freshman year of high school. I played for the Eastside Broncos.
Okay.
So
So what year is that?
that's 99. That's 99. Yep.
Okay. So 2000 is your first year getting into varsity competition.
Yeah, and man, I ended up starting varsity basketball as a freshman because of some stuff happened. But I didn't know that there was like JV varsity freshman. I didn't know that. I thought it was just one team. I didn't know nothing about none of that. Like because that's all I had ever known was just one team. You know what I mean? So because I didn't know that there was like Friday night and Saturday some bums played. I only went to a Friday night game, so I never knew that. Like, not no offense to nobody that played JV or nothing. Like, cause I played in the JV, but I'm just saying like that's how it was perceived to me. Like, and I was like, hold on. So the real game was yesterday. Y'all gotta go play on Saturday morning. Like, I was confused about that the first time that I actually heard it. So like when I did go to Ursuline games or when I did see Anthony Floyd play for Chaney, I never knew there was like I mean, you got to think I'm a kid from the South Side, so like like talking to my cousins and all of them, like they played varsity football for Ursuline, so they never spoke about, hey, we going to JV game or they. I ain't never heard that. So like, I'm just thinking that it's one game. So then, like when I finally get to play basketball, they like, oh, you made the team or whatever, and they was like, oh, but you're a freshman, you probably gonna play JV. And I'm confused. So I'm scratching my head, like Josh Smith and them telling me like I'm gonna play JV, and I'm confused. Like, the hell is that? Like, I thought I was on the
So
team with y'all, but I ended up starting varsity because something happened. One of the point guards, so I ended up starting a lot of games my freshman year. So then I kind of got a feel for varsity sports. So when football came around and I came out for football, like Tondi and Brad and all them dudes, they was going to their senior year, so them cats was trying, like they was already out there. You know what I mean? And I knew I was good, but the actual program didn't know I was good yet. Like all the dudes that played at Boney with me knew that I was good, and like dudes from the neighborhood, like Tondi and them, knew I could ball, but like they didn't really feel like I was on their level. You know what I mean?
right. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of interested to know just, of course we compete with the guys that are on the field, but we also compete with our guys that we know. And then
Mm-hmm.
just that profile, how is do you think that's a positive or a negative? Like if somebody got eyes on them, then that's kind of a way to get eyes on you to
For
keep
sure.
pace or what have you. And I just don't know how you felt about that during your time playing, because I looked at your numbers back in the day, and you had some really outstanding seasons. But when it comes to recruiting and attention and things like that, sometimes it just don't translate because of what somebody else is looking for or who the spotlight may be on. So a lot of times, you might get passed over and not end up where you could be. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
where other
Sure.
guys, if you go to a certain school, you may be playing a D1 schedule, you get a little extra bump up, even though there may not be a huge gap in talent. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So,
For sure.
so
I
just
mean, I know from like from the beginning, like when you go and you look at like how the recruiting pool goes. Like, so I deal with it right now because I got one son going to college, I got one son in college, and then I trained the number 2 player in the country right now today, and it's not all about football, man. Like, and that's the part about it that I dislike. Like, it has nothing to do with football at all. I've seen 5-star kids play against no-star kids and get destroyed, and it has nothing to do with football, like zero. And like people say, "Oh, well, Urban Meyer one team or Nick Saban one team or something like that," and then you turn around and then you like, man, I watched the kid. So, prime example, I'll give you an example, right? 3 years ago, I was training a bunch of Canfield boys, right? The kid right now that goes to Ohio State played for Streetsboro. And was he a dog? Yes, he was a dog. The kids from Canfield was, they was like, oh man, like this dude's so good, blah, 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 blah. He's so big, he's so strong, he's so this, he's so that. They won by almost 50 in the playoffs. So what I'm saying is that Canfield team, that starting line was all benching close to 400, right? All them dudes was squatting and deadlifting over 500. None of them went to school to play. None of them. Zero. None of them went to school. But they dogged that kid that was a 5-star going to Ohio State that plays right now. So you see what I'm saying? Like, and I was at the game, so I know. So like when you go back and you look at stuff like that, like is the kid really that good, or did he just play a really good team, or was those kids actually really good and got skipped over? But remember, you got in that situation, you got a coach who doesn't help his kid, who doesn't recruit for his kids. He only wants to win high school games. So I mean, that's film alone right there. That's just like if I'm playing against you and you the best 5-star kid in our state, and I drag you, they should take a look at me. But when you don't have nobody speaking up for you, how do you get looked at? Like
you're right.
that's the part. That's the part that makes it rough.
And then perception is part of it too, right?
For sure. For sure. I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, Like I look at, you see a kid, and then they say, like as a recruiter, you come in and you see a kid, and they say, hmm, I could turn him into this, I could turn him into that, I could do this with that kid. Versus another kid, they might be like, he might be the best player on that team, but he might not suit our program. I get that part too. You know what I mean? But I'm still a football guy. I still feel like the X's and O's and getting out there and playing is a lot different than, you know, you just saying, I'm taking this dude because he's 6'8", 305. I mean, like I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I love the gym. But like I got some kids that are astronomically stronger than a lot of people, like grown men. But that don't necessarily mean they're good football players either. You know what I mean? I watch dudes that throw everything around in the weight room and then get on the field and got terrible feet and they give up sacks all the time. You know? So, but I mean, I'm just in a position where I know what it's like being a top dog and then you play against, I'm not going to say mediocre, but a little bit better than average. And then them guys go on and play on different levels. And like, it's just kind of like I've been dogging you my whole life. It ain't just start happening. Like it's been happening since little league to middle school to high school to going to college. You know what I mean? You might take a path and go somewhere else where you from an area where football is predominantly everything. You know what it's like being from the South Side. Hey, you either play hoops, play football, or you play both. There ain't no baseball. If you ran track, it's only because you went to a school and you might have been the fast kid from the neighborhood. But all them other sports, they non-existent. It's straight football. If you're a Boney Rogers kid, you know what it's like to play tough, competitive football. Like you look at, like if you go back right now, you look at all your Boney Rogers coaches, right? How many of them guys was actually really good coaches? They didn't really teach you football. It was just they knew what it took to go out there and play Boney Rogers football. You know what I mean? You wasn't really getting coached up at that time. It was you was either fast, you could hit, or you had moves. It was something that you had that whatever team you played for, it just made it look good. So if you was a fast kid on the team, 9 times out of 10, you was pretty much the tailback. They trying to get you outside to outrun everybody. The most athletic kid, 9 times out of 10, play your quarterback. You know what I mean? And your best tackler is probably your Mike linebacker. And then that's just how you go. There wasn't no blocking scheme in Little League. Man, you just line up and you go. You know what I mean? And that's what happens to a lot of city kids that play in them tough little leagues, and then they don't play middle school, which I do like that they're doing now. But you don't play middle school, and then you go straight to high school, and you got all that raw talent, and then you go play some dudes that you know that you better than, but then you end up losing because you got a whole bunch of talent, but you ain't never been taught nothing. So now you just out there and you got a cat that's running a 4.8 smoking you for a bomb, and you can't understand why. You know what I mean? Because it ain't just about I'm fast. You know what I mean? So, like that was one of my big things about playing for Chaney. You know what I mean? You know what it's like coming up in the black community. If you a big boy and you play on the line ain't never glorified. So my best friend was a lineman, but because we end up going to Chaney and instead of going to Wilson, where I had some dudes that went to Wilson and ran that was actually really good football players. But when a dude is 6'4" and he's 300 pounds, he in a black school, you know what he say? Man, I want to play QB. Like how? Like like how? You go. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. You go to Chaney, you meet a big white dude. He tell you, "Hey, what's up, man? Hey, I'm your guard. I can't wait to block for you this year." Two totally different worlds. You know what I mean? He know he ain't touching that ball, and if he see the ball on the ground, he ain't trying to pick it up. He falling on it for the next down. You know what I mean? The mentality be different, and so now, me being a coach, I try to make sure I glorify the lineman because you know I would have never became what I became without my line. I had some great dudes that blocked for me. I mean, Coach Saunders was our old line coach, but like them was my dudes, man. Like You know what I mean? It was my cats. Like, man, rushing for, you know what I'm saying, rushing games, having over 300 yards and 6 and 7 touchdowns, stuff like that, man. You turn around and you look at it, man. Yeah, you did a little bit of work, but man, they zone blocked and opened up holes where I could have picked which way I wanted to go. You know what I mean? It wasn't just straight. It was all scheme. You know what I mean? At that point,
I felt like, one of the things that I was going to ask you, okay, we talked about your stats, right?
right,
And we talked about the numbers, and fortunately, I got to witness it. Um, and I mean this humbly. I don't mean it. I got to contribute to it,
right,
meaning, I coached the guys that did it for you,
right,
right? So I take pride in that.
for sure.
Um, and it's really a team effort. Like, I always felt like a a great offensive line
Mhm.
could make a blue collar back
Yeah,
look phenomenal.
for sure, for sure.
Okay. And a great tailback can make a mediocre line look pretty
Look,
freaking good.
right, right.
And when you put the two together, when you talk about, and I forget the number, but you talk about, okay, 25 touchdowns or 22 touchdowns or whatever the number is your senior year.
Nah, 33.
Um, see, that's why I said, that's
33.
why
Yeah,
I
33.
don't know the number. Okay, my fault.
33.
I should have said 32 or 35.
Hey,
My
but it
fault.
was actually, if you really think about it, it was 33 touchdowns in 9 games. Because I didn't score in the playoff game senior year, and I didn't score against Uniontown. But both games I had over 200 yards, no TDs.
So, and the question is, out of that 35, you know, how many of those are block perfect? And you just gotta, be out of it. How many do you have to create on your own? You know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying is that it's that mesh of, you know, two great features coming together, which makes a special experience that we had,
Right,
right? That you had, that we all had together. Um, Without one, you don't have the other.
for
Either
sure.
way.
But it's predicated back to the practice. I mean, I've talked to dudes that play in the league. I mean, I watched my son practice at Marshall. Um, like going through JUCO practices. Everybody's doing everything they can at junior college to try to get to that D1 school. Like me personally doing that, and then like actually coaching practice like I did today. I've never ever in my life seen a practice as hard as a Ron Burtis double session. 7 to 5 and can't leave, and you got to lift while you eat is insane. It's insane. Like, could you imagine right now if you tell some kids we practice it from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and during your lunch period that you can't leave, you lifting weight? Man, come on, man. Come on, man. Coach Burtis would be in jail. That man would be in prison right now.
But it's that's a reflection of where we're from.
For sure.
Because number one, when you talk about coaching the guys of his era, his age, they're these guys are coached by World War II veterans, Korean War veterans. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Straight ahead, charge, take the hill, sacrifice for the next man.
Right.
We're from a place that makes steel for the whole country. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? The guys that are going in and out of those meals, 12, 14, 16-hour shifts, 6 days a week, sometimes seven if production is high. That translates into their sons, that translates into how people, you know, think about their environment, control their environment, attack work, provide for themselves. So, you know, a 7 to 3 day is nothing when you measure that against what your grandfather's doing down at the mill. So
Right.
for us, people who can remember that time, that's just everyday life for us versus
Mhm.
what a Youngstown kid experiences now.
Right.
There's not that citywide singular mentality. GM's gone now. Even that
Hmm.
has some semblance to that old day and that bring your lunch bucket to work type thing. Now,
Right.
kids got options and opportunities where, football isn't necessarily their way out. They can
Yeah,
do the social media thing, they can do the music and entertainment thing. For you, me, Dallas, even if you had a decent home life where your parents could provide things, that avenue for sports was typically how most boys viewed their way out of Youngstown, or just some notoriety that you wanted to get and test
right.
yourself again. I look at my own sons and the way they approach athletics and things, and they're participants, and that used to bother me a
Mhm.
lot because they had varying levels of talent, but they don't have that same competitive
Yeah,
spirit that we were raised with.
yeah. The
So for
drive is
them,
different. Drive is
yeah,
different.
it's like, hey, I'm gonna go out there. I want to be known, but all that extra, get up and run 2-3 miles just because I ain't doing that. I'll get mine in when I go to practice. Lifting when ain't nobody looking. They don't have that mindset. So that's the separator between the modern era and then what we were accustomed to. You find a kid every now and again now that has that work ethic, but it's usually because somebody has explained it or showed it to
Mhm.
them, or they're in such a desperate situation that they know that this is my only chance.
For sure.
So, you
Let me ask
it's
you this.
hard for
So
us.
let me ask you this, both you guys, right? So, I think about my experience growing up. The reason I got into coaching was because the same thing you're talking about, right? Like your life experience as a young man is as a player, sports, and that's it. And there's really nothing ever else occurred. It wasn't that there was an option. It just that's all that ever mattered. And so my father exposed me to things like, hey, if you want to do this, here's what you got to do. Like
Right.
it's up to you. Um, do you feel like do you feel like kids have changed, or do you feel like maybe the parental influence of if this is what you want, then this is the price that has to be
Well,
paid.
well,
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
I don't. I mean, I believe that everything starts at home, but society has changed. They're just weak on a lot of different things. You know what I mean? Now you go back to the football aspect of it, where now everybody has an opinion. We both played for Chaney. You played for Ron. I played for Ron. Could you imagine saying some of the stuff that the kids say today at a football practice? Come on, man. Like, could you imagine right now telling the kid? I mean, a kid telling you, "I ain't got to do that. That we don't have to be out there. It's too hot. We could call so and so, or we could, you know, we don't have to go outside today because the heat index is this and this and that." Like, I mean, you see what I'm saying? It gives everybody a new opinion who shouldn't have opinion. And that's why people don't respect authority no more, because they're giving everybody a leeway. I watched a kid, I was coaching for Struthers Little Wildcats. I watched a kid that was a quarterback. His dad was the head coach. I was the head coach too at the time. Team we were playing in Austintown. The dad has his son come over. He's how the quarterback runs halfway off the field to get the next play. The kid made a bonehead play before. He had fumbled or whatever. They got the ball back. The dad, which is the coach, and I didn't see nothing wrong with it. He grabbed his son by the helmet, pulled him close to him, said what he said to him, but the helmet was kind of shaking a little bit, right? And then on the way back out there, he give him the play, pop him in the back of the head, he goes out. The police escorted the coach off the football field because the parents didn't like how he was coaching his kid. Now, mind you, my son is plays for Marshall now. My son was 12 years old at the time playing for the Struthers Little Wildcats. So go back and think about how many years it is. My son's 20 right now. That was 8 years ago. Think about how much softer society's got since then.
I mean, but when you say that, like, it's I'm sure if we went back 45 years before our time.
Hmm.
It's the same conversation because you have to adapt and adjust as
Right.
mindset shift and social norms shift. And some of it is we're all smart enough to know that you know certain things that we grew up on, some of it wasn't acceptable. You know what I
Right.
mean? And because it's ingrained in us, it's hard to break that habit. But it goes back to that old saying, when in Rome, you got to do what the Romans do. You know what I
Right.
mean? Even if it's
Right.
against your nature, but there's still room to stand on things here and there. Like, you can't replace. I don't care how many different formations they come up with, what rules they change. If you're gonna play the game of football, there's certain things that you just can't not do. When we talking about like CTE and things like that, it's a
Right.
collision sport. You're
Right.
gonna have concussions. You're gonna have awkward plays. That what happened in Buffalo is a prime example of that. There's a risk, and you can't
Right.
legislate that out of the game of football because there's just some never changing uh, hard fast rules to physics that there's always going to be a chance that a play can go bang bang and it end up bad for somebody.
Well, I mean, and to piggyback off of something like that, like like I had a grandfather that was in the military, right? And then like you say, like if somebody is in the military or if somebody plays football and like they've been through a lot of trauma, what do they say now? You have you what is it? PTSD, right?
PTSD.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have PTSD. Okay, all right. So, all right, I'm a guy who went to prison, right? So hear me out. So I go to the military, I go over to a war, and I see a lot of stuff, right? And then I come back to society, and they justify whatever act that I make because of PTSD, right? They do, right? What's wrong with a kid that grew up and watched his friends' brains get blown out next to him, watch the kid get raped, watch all of this bad stuff happen, then he go to prison. He can't say he got PTSD. Why is it different?
I, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's like it's only justified one way. You know what I'm saying? Like I wrote a book and everybody wanted to read my book because they thought my book was gonna be on things that I seen, but I wrote a love novel. So it was a total different. People was my book still sold, but people wanted to hear that, I'm saying? Like, my neighborhood was rough, So I'm gonna put this out here and I know this is live and but I want people to hear this. Maurice Claret is 39 years old. I'm 38 years old, right? Maurice Claret was one of the smartest kids in my neighborhood. They had a thing called Health Quest. It was every 4 years, they picked four kids to become doctors to get full rides to go to Ohio State, right? My sister was one of them. Maurice Claret was another one. They was a year ahead of me. My sister was in the gifted program in North. They both end up still going to Ohio State. People don't know Maurice Claret was one of the smartest kids around. That's number one. Number two is from the neighborhood I'm from, one of our stars was Juan Bell. Juan Bell passed away. He got killed, right? Juan Bell is the dude's funeral that Reese wanted to go to when he was in Denver. And they made a big stink about it because he was a drug dealer. But let me tell you one thing. When you play Little League football, when you're from a neighborhood and neighborhoods is tight, right? Juan Bell dropped out of high school. But guess what Juan Bell used to do? He used to pull up in our neighborhoods, right? Driving his Lexus, give everybody money. Y'all stay in school. I'm gonna come to all y'all games. He was a neighborhood superstar, not because of sports, but because he cared about everybody in the neighborhood. Yeah, he died in gun violence. Yeah, he died. But the thing was, all these people don't realize how much that dude cared about us. You see what I'm saying? And y'all, they frowned upon it. But guess what? All these people that have all this, if I couldn't run a football, if Reese couldn't run a football, would you would have cared about us? See what I'm saying? So you only care about us because we can run the ball and we can score some touchdowns. But do you really care about us as a person? So all them Ohio State fans and all the people in the pros, oh, Marty's correct, and this and that. But guess what? That dude actually cared about this. He actually cared about that man. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of the football. So, you know, if he didn't never pick up another football, you think dude was gonna stop talking to him? Nah, he wasn't. He was still gonna be in his ear talking to him. You know what I'm saying? So like little stuff like that, you know, people don't look at that part of it. They only looking at, oh, he wants to go to a drug dealer's funeral, but you don't know what that drug dealer meant to us. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know what that's like. Scoring some touchdowns and a dude break you off a couple of 20s because you did your thing up at South Fieldhouse or down at Vonnie Rogers. You know what I mean? That's all before this stuff. Remember, there's people who care about you before you get to them levels. You know, that's the part that people, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the people that was there from the beginning because guess what? When I went to prison and when I got out, them people still there. All the people who loved me when I was playing sports and then I get in trouble, they kind of disown me. They back up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't what you do if you care about somebody. Because guess what? A lot of people would have got in trouble. A lot of people would have went to prison. A lot of people would have did a lot of things. But what happens is people end up being in situations and, you know, they never get caught or they, you know, somebody uh, sweep it under the rug or you get what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that happen to certain people and, you know, you just don't you don't end up getting the same as what somebody else would have got. So like a lot of people have people in their corner where they might have the money for the lawyer or the money for this or the money for that, and they can kind of sweep it out the way, and people never know that it happened.
So, you know, you talk about like the casual fan caring about the athlete. Um, was 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 the average neighborhood kid getting thrown a 20? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, well, my
is
neighbor,
it
but
like
hold on.
kind of
But my neighborhood was stellar though. You got to think. So my neighborhood consisted of
right,
Walter
right.
Reyes, Maurice Claret, Ed McElroy, Delbert Ferguson. We was star studded over there. You know, and we were
But
all in that same group. So,
that's
you
my
know,
point. Everybody loves a star, right? You know, like
for sure.
the star always gets a little. I don't know. The star always gets a little bit extra.
No,
Right,
for
right,
sure.
wrong, or indifferent.
No, you're right. No, 100%, you're right. But you know what I'm saying is, even though you wasn't the star, you know, okay. So like, let's look at my neighborhood, right? Walter Reyes older than me, right? Reese older than me. Then there's me, and then there's Delbert. So you think Delbert got the less of us? He didn't. Everybody was getting, you know, it's just I didn't make up the neighborhood. It's just where I grew up. You know what I mean? So
But
Right,
what
right.
I mean, what you're really saying though, like, is it's not even a sports thing in what you're saying
right,
because it's how we grow up and how we bond, and then some of it is just based on affiliations, boundaries, and
right,
protection, and taking care of who's in your circle. And
right,
that's a Youngstown thing. You know what I mean? It ain't no different from side to side. It's in every pocket. It just
right,
manifests and shows itself in different ways depending on where you at in the city.
right,
Wanted to kind of ask you about that because like your your family lineage got a lot of great athletes with that same McElroy last name. So
hmm
I'm interested to know what type of tips and pointers and regimens are you getting put through even before getting to Chaney? Like, is your dad talking to you about how to approach playing the game, how to
Well, so like my
approach being
dad,
aggressive?
my dad was like a man of very few words. Like he was like a sports almanac though. Like that dude would wake up at like 4 in the morning. You could call my dad and be like, "Hey, who was the badminton champion in 1965?" And he'd know. He was one of them type of dudes. You know what I mean? So I grew up breathing sports from him. You know what I mean? Like it was more so like, and it's funny. Like with my dad was a running back and was a point guard. He never taught me neither of the two. And guess what I ended up playing? Running back and point guard. My son ended up being a running back and point guard. And it was one of those things where my dad was saying, you know, you gonna be what you gonna be because you from me. Like, you a McElroy, like this is natural. You know what I'm saying? Like this ain't nothing. Like so, like when it was going to, so like when it would go like when I would go play sports and do stuff like in my yard, because I had the neighborhood house where I had the big driveway with the hoop. So I had 50 kids over my crib hooping. You know what I mean? Basketball was my first love. So I mean, we would be out there throwing down older dudes, younger dudes betting, everything. My dad used to come out and always say, "This ain't the goddamn Cleveland Park. If you want all these MFers down here, you need to take them down to Cleveland Park." I mean, my house would be loaded, but it was one of those things like when everybody would be gone, my dad would stand in the driveway or stand right where the glass door was and just watch me shoot. And if something was wrong, he'd tell me, like duck this and that. But he wouldn't go out there and like run drills or none of that. It was just like ain't nobody teach me. Like go out there and work. Like if you got this already because you got me. You know what I'm saying? Like so I already knew that. Like I remember being a kid and getting into a fight, and my sister kind of telling my dad like Eddie got in the fight. Like you know what I'm saying? And like she didn't say I lost, but like I didn't really do what I was supposed to. And he kind of was like, "You a McElroy. You better get your ass back out there." I had to go out there and give it what I knew. You know what I'm saying? Even though it wasn't taught, so it was more so like my dad was more so like I ain't have to say nothing. I kind of could just say, "You know who you are," and it was like that. So like it was just constantly me doing me getting out there and just playing, like just every day, just out there working, like. And he gave me all the tools. He said, "When it rain, here go a push broom, sweep the driveway, it'll dry out, bounce the ball on it." You know what I'm saying? Football, So he gave me all the tools, but he didn't actually get out there with me. I dropped a couple passes playing for the Suns. He went out in the front yard, threw me a couple balls, all week. You know what I'm saying? Before a big game, and like that's like one of the only times I can remember. Outside of that, like I just remember going into my senior year, my pops tell me, and man, very humble though. Going into my senior year, my pops told me, he said, "Yeah, you better than me." I was shocked because I met all my dad's friends. You know what I'm saying? And he a Hall of Fame dude. He played at YSU, dotted the I at YSU. My uncle Johnny in the Hall of Fame, like they big stars, And for my dad to say, "Man, he's better than me," and I still got one more year of high school, I was like, "Man, I must be all right for real." You know what I mean? And then let's fast forward, and I told Coach Saunders this, you know, my son playing middle school, and I'm jumping the gun. I'm not like my dad. I jumped the gun, and I told my dad on the ride home from St. Christine, my son was playing for Youngstown Catholic before he went to Erston. I tell my dad on the ride home, I mean, you got to think from Canfield Road to Glenwood and Mistletoe is what? A 10-minute ride, if that? I tell my dad, "Man, I don't think DeMarcus got it. I don't think he that good." Man, my pops cussed me out. Rest in peace to my dad. Cussed me out on the ride home. Like, "You can't see? He better than you." Man, debating like, are you serious? You think he better than me? Like, man, get out of here. He said, "Man, you just keep watching. You gonna see. I already can see it. He better than you." He always had a great eye for that. And fast forward, I had a great senior season, 30-something touchdowns, 20-something 100 yards, almost 3,000 yards, all this. Then my son smoked me on that. So, I go back, old man was right. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if somebody was to ask me and we comparing numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, he's better than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I'm going to say that to y'all. I hope he don't see this, because I don't want him to think he better than me, because, I ain't never lost to my son in nothing yet. So I don't play them games. I don't lie and say, "You better than me." I just don't tell him that, you know.
So you end up going to Erie, CC.
No, I end up going to Allegheny Community College,
Oh,
downtown
okay, okay.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, I wanted to
Um,
go to ECC.
Now, when you go through that experience, because you got the pedigree, you got numbers to back you up. So there's no question about your prowess, your talent. And I felt the same way, having to settle down to that Division II level. But how do you attack that atmosphere and then adjust to that next level of college football?
So when I went to the junior college out there, we didn't. It wasn't. There was the first years for the school's football program.
Right.
So what had happened was the head coach was it was a All American for Pitt as a safety. His girlfriend, fiance at the time, ran admissions. So he's seen a way, and I'm looking at it from different standpoints now that I'm an adult. He wanted to help young dudes that was pretty decent football players or didn't have the grades or nothing, start his own team and help these dudes get into college, right? Which was a good thing. So what he did was he started the team. It was the first year for the team. We didn't do that good. We got whooped by ECC. It was the first losing team football team I had ever been on in my life. It was horrifying. I was probably the best player on the team. I'm not exaggerating. I was. I could have played center and been the best dude. Like I was the best dude on the team. He had some decent dudes, but like I mean, we got whooped by Lackawanna. We got whooped by ECC. You know what I mean? We beat like Walter Reed, like the military school and stuff like that. But so when I'm up there, all of our games was club football. Club football means the coach was paying all the referees and paying for all our travel and paying for all of our equipment. So what happened was every kid that was on the team, they had to pay him $2,500 at the end of this football season. And people fought him on that. But if you read the fine print, he was telling you that. But if you go back and you look at it, right? Average Division I, uh, this group of five football scholarship per year is about $50,000 to $65,000 a year, right? $2,500 ain't nothing. My parents, so he was helping. Larry Fitzgerald was at Pitt at the time. He had me down at Pitt. They like me. They see me run the ball. I'm still got all my moves. You got to think, I'm only 1 year out of high school. I only played 1 year in JUCO. So, my grades is decent, all of that. So he taking me down to Pitt. Pitt interested in me. You know what I mean? So at the time, I don't think Larry Fitzgerald that special. I feel like I'm special. Like, at that time, you got to think, me and Reggie Bush graduated the same year. I was so adamant that I was better than Reggie Bush. You can ask anybody that I know. When they used to have all these things of this Reggie Bush and all that, I'm like, yo, dude couldn't play over here. Dude couldn't play at Mollenkoff. He couldn't play like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he ain't built like we built. Like, I'm watching the caliber and who we playing, and in my mind, I'm just like, man, dude fast on the track, but I ain't worried about none of that. Like, let us go head to head. I feel like I'm better. That's where I was at. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like Pitt Pitt's on the horizon. You know what I'm saying? Chris Eskew at the time was still living in my parents' house, and he was playing for Chaney. Chaney was doing really well. He ends up getting shot 2 games before the season is over. And like this my dog, you know what I mean? Even though I'm right there in Pittsburgh, this my dog. So I remember coming home, and then the thing comes out where, the coach told me, like, man, you only gotta do 1 semester here, and then your grades wasn't already bad when you got here. Like, you got good grades, like, man, I can get you into school. But then that paper came out where he was hitting everybody up for the 2,500. He wanted to recoup his money back. I gave it to my mom. My mom and them, they going to court. They want to fight dude in court. So they fighting him in court. They end up losing. They pay the 2,500. But because my parents fought him, he stopped dealing with it. Right? So after that, I'm like, man, bump school. I ain't going back to school. You know what I'm saying? Right after football season was over, we still got what? Couple weeks left, man. I just stopped going. Chris got shot. I'm at the crib. I'm with him. I'm in the hospital with him. He got a colostomy bag. So I get all incomplete. Incompletes is worse than F, right? But see, what dude did for me, he let it be, since it was club football, I went under 9 credit hours, so my football clock didn't actually start yet. So he was actually doing me a favor. But now, in hindsight, as an adult, that $2,500, man, we should have just paid. My parents had it anyway. We should have just paid that, and who would have knew what I would have become? You know what I'm saying? So I end up coming home. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, I bumped that. I ain't going back to JUCO. You know what I mean? So now Kristen got shot. So now, I'm a little different, but now Christmas time comes around. Everybody back home. All the dudes I played against the Boardman, the Villagranas and the Grecos, and the Sean Claytons of the world, like all these dudes that went to all these big D1 schools that I done drug my whole life to dog these cats. No offense to them, they good dudes, but they know the truth. I'm not lying. You know what I'm saying? And then when they see me in the mall, they all like, "Hey man, where'd you end up going to school? Where you end up going to school?" I'm nowhere. I'm at home. All these dudes right after Christmas break, you know where they going? They going right back to their D1. So I'm embarrassed for real. So
Yeah.
I'm at the crib. I'm sitting. I had two really good games versus Rand in 2 years. I had like 12 or 13 touchdowns in two games versus them dudes. I had like 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 or something crazy, 6 and 6 in 2 years. Like, excuse me. So one of their coaches, a guy named Carvel Cecil, was one of the coaches that ran at the time, and he was helping out in the school, and he seen my mom, and he was like, "Hey, where your son at?" And she was like, "Oh, he at home." And she like, "What? He at home?" Like, "Yeah." He was like, "Man, I've been looking for your son, man. I got in touch with these guys from Marshall, man. They in love with your son." Man, cell phones wasn't even around. He called the house. He was like, "Hey man, I got a recruiter that want to talk to you. I already been sending him all your film and this and that." I get on the phone with the dude. The dude said, "Hey, could you get down here tomorrow?" I remember calling my dad. He was working at Rite Aid as a security guard. I called my dad up at Rite Aid. I was like, "Yeah, McElroy there." They was like, "Yeah." Put him on the phone. I said, "Dad, man, there's a recruiter at Marshall. He want me down there tomorrow." My dad was like, "That's like 5 6 hours." He was like, "Man, he want me. He want me down there. They talking about giving me a full scholarship." My dad said, "All right, I'm taking off, man." We hit the road early that morning. We get down there. They show us the life. You know what I mean? Like they feed us good. They show us the campus, locker rooms, this, that, and the third. They're like, "So have you been to college?" I don't tell them I've been to college. I'm like, "Nah, I ain't been yet." They say, "All right, well, you got to take a placement test, right?" Take a placement test. We there all day. Placement test come back, dude. Like, "Hey man, you got all incomplete." I'm like, "What?" He was like, "You went to Allegheny Community College?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I only went for last semester." Like, he was like, "Did you finish?" I'm like, "Nah, but my grades was good." He said, "Nah, you got all F's." Like, "Did you finish?" I was like, "Nah, I didn't go the last couple of weeks." He was like, "Well, you got all incomplete." So now you got to think, at the time, I'm 19 years old. He's like, the guy says, "All right, so this is what I can do for you. You can come to Marshall, get on our team. We're not gonna give you no full scholarship right now. We're gonna give you some money. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be on the team. We're gonna be bringing guys in, but you're gonna be on the team. You're gonna learn, but like you gotta get out of this academic, what's it called, probation. You gotta get out of this academic probation. And you probably gonna play in like 2 years, like not this spring ball, but the next spring ball." I'm like, "Wow, what?" Heck, so he's talking 2 years basically. And like, yeah, he's like, "Or you can go back to junior college, get your grades up, and then come back." Man, hey, my football career died on that ride home on the way back up 77, man. Like,
So when you're, you, and this is you as a more mature man, right?
mm-hmm,
So when you go back and you think about, you know, the goal, your own talent, what you're capable of.
mm-hmm,
You've had an opportunity at Allegheny. You know, uh, the structure of that may not have been where it could have been in terms of support, right? Because if you have a program that may have been in existence a little bit longer, they would have known how to steer guys
right.
to
Well,
keep the opportunity going. But so what I'm kind of getting at in terms of asking you is, as a mature man, when you go through those scenarios and you see that timeline, that pathway, and how it unfolds, and this is more so for a guy that may be experiencing some of these things now. you
mm-hmm.
know when you look back at it, are there things that you would have approached differently, attacked differently, in during any part of that process?
Well, all the way from the beginning. So you got to look at it like I lived in a two-parent household. Both my parents graduated from college. Both of them retired from jobs. Both one got their master's degrees, one got bachelor degree. So I come from a household where like it was super structured. One, number two is they didn't know the recruiting process because they had never been through it. So like you know, my dad is one of them dudes like he played for East. He was good. YSU wanted him. I was so good, they was expecting the same thing. Oh, we ain't got to do that. Oh shit, he a star. You see what I'm saying? But people don't understand. And like me and Dallas had this conversation. At that era, at that time, like now you could kind of recruit yourself and get yourself out there a little bit more on your own. Even you still do need the coaches, but you could still you could throw your line out there and it'll get in the water. Like back then, if wasn't nobody throwing it for you, wasn't nothing happening because there was guys going. I mean, and it still happens today. Like there's guys who go to school that haven't really played no football, and they get D1 scholarships, and they don't go off of production. They go off of potential. Like I'm in a big recruiting thing right now. Like I got the number 2 kid in the country, and he's never played a 10-game season. So he's number 2 in the country. He's a 5-star. So it don't got nothing to do with football. You know what I'm saying? Like I played all the football in the world. I didn't forget more games that I probably didn't play from the age of 6 to my semi-pro career than dudes that have played 9 high school football games and are 5-star athletes and are going to play for Georgia now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If you look at that process and you kind of
If
see how
I
it
if I knew
unfolded, so what, like, how would you advise guys to look out for those pitfalls, or just kind of?
so parents ask me this daily because I'm a personal trainer for football players. Well, I train every sport, but mainly football players, right? Parents ask me this daily, and I say, and I'm 100% honest. If you want to win games, go to a program that just wins. If you want to go to school, go to a school where kids and coaches is that's their number one goal to get you into college. So those are two totally different things. Those are two totally different things. Like, don't get caught up on the wins and losses because guess what? At the end, you have a Letterman jacket with a whole bunch of wins. Then that's it. I know dudes that then won one game senior year and went to Michigan. You know what I'm saying? I just seen kids with very mediocre grades, no ACT score at all, and go play in the Big Ten. And I done watch dudes have amazing high school careers and go to state championships and have astronomical numbers and is a preferred walk on. And they two totally different ball players. You know what I'm saying? But remember, if you go to a school where the coach gets even the second string dudes in the Ashland on the full ride, you got you something. Like let's keep it real. 5, 6 years ago, Warren Harding's backups was going to play Division II and going to Akron and Kent on full rides with no film. So it's a pipeline. You know what I'm saying? It's a big difference when every day. So right now, my other son just grabbed my son right now. My middle son graduated from Fitch. Every day, TJ Parker played high school when I played football, high school football. He's the head coach for Austintown Fitch. Every Power 5 in the country has been in Austintown Fitch because Brian Robinson, the kid that I trained, goes to school there. So now Kids is getting a look that they've never seen. You know what I'm saying? Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, all of them have flew up to see Brian Robinson. Like, you know how crazy that is? That Georgia is in Youngstown, Ohio to see a kid after winning the national championship. Like, you know how many head coaches I have talked to so far this past year? In 2023, I done talked to 5 head coaches FaceTime because I trained Brian Robinson. They want to know what the hell you doing to this kid? Like, he's 6'6", 260 right now at 16 with
Yeah,
5% body fat.
so he fits the measurables then.
Yeah, but hold on. Not even 18 months ago, guess how big he was? Take a wild guess. I mean, and I'm taking.
16, I'm gonna say maybe he's probably like 6'4", 200.
Yeah, right. He was 6'3", 147.
Wow.
18 months ago. Hey, whenever you get a minute, I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you his before and after from a year to the date. From it was June 2021 to June 2022. Man, he put on 65 pounds in a year. But he's one of those kids that he works out 3 times a day. He has he has a nutritionist. He has a personal trainer, which is me. He has an agility coach, which is in Cleveland. His dad drives. He has a masseuse and he has a masseuse in Columbus. And he has like right now he's not even in school. Like he's in Frisco, Texas right now training. He's in Frisco, Texas right now training, and he trains with BB and Trent Williams on a regular. Like he just, I mean, out of a school year, he's probably been to school maybe not even half of the days. He's been all over the country. I mean, but like that's what I'm saying. And like his dad was telling me, man, I don't think I'm even gonna let him play football his senior year at all because he can graduate even earlier than January. He can go to college because he got his GPA is like a 4.1. He can graduate from high school. He can go to YSU, take 3 or 4 courses this summer, and don't have to play football at all. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, you didn't listen to me this far, right? He said, yes. I said, he needs to play more football. Because what's going to end up happening is, yes, he's a physical specimen, but he hasn't played as much football as some of these dudes at Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and all these schools that won. You know what I'm saying? And at some point, the one-on-one drills and all the stuff that he learned, yeah, that's going to help you, but you haven't played football enough. You have to have more than a half a season or a season of high school football down before you can go do that, man. Because they're expecting that kid to come in and play right now. Like he's offered millions of dollars right now. Deion Sanders offered him $1.5 million to come to Jackson State before he left. So that's crazy money. And I listen. This is no jab. This ain't no I'm making nothing up. This is out there. It's real money on the line. Like life changing money for a 16-year-old kid. So I tell parents, if you want to listen to me, I'm from Youngstown. I know what's best for a kid. You can't say, well, because I live in this area, my kid go to this school. Nah. If you know you got a kid, like a real legit kid, if you got a kid that you know that's D1, don't send him to the school that's in this area if they don't play nobody of caliber or if he's not going to be able to be seen by nobody. You wasting that kid's talent. You know what I'm saying? If you got a kid and he lives in Poland and Poland ain't did nothing, it might be better to send him to a different school. You know what I mean? It might be better for him to have a 15, 20-minute drive to go to school for the recruitment process, for the camps and all of the different things that's offered now to these kids. I've never been to a camp while I was in high school. Keelan did. Keelan went to the West Virginia camp. I never went to a camp. So I could only imagine what life would have been like going to a camp. all I knew was, man, I got to be the best dude going, and I'm gonna get in school that way. You know what I mean? So like that's little stuff right there. Like if you got a running back right now, like tell me right now, you live in Columbus, right?
Right.
All right, so you in Columbus, right? And let's say you know Columbus got a bigger pool of a school, right? And you tell me like, man, my son go to Pickerington Central. That's a huge school, right? And I tell you, like, hey, man, your son play running back. Why would you keep him at Pickerington? He got to wait the damn near his senior year to run the ball. Well, right now, I could send him right up the road to Hubbard, and he can go to Hubbard right now. They thriving for a young back. And remember, your son wasn't even a star at Pickerington Central. But if he come up and go to Hubbard, and Hubbard known for sending their backs, like their last back just went to Ohio State, and then you had one before that go to Ohio State. You had one go to Michigan State. You had one go to Pitt. You had one go to Syracuse. Like so, the list goes on. So you know that's a pipeline. So my thing is, hey, why don't you get him up here with me for a senior year? You send him over to Hubbard. He go up there and be all world. Yeah, he changed it from playing Division 1 down to D3, but he's still playing some guys. He gets some film. Now, the dude that's at Pickerington Central, he's still trying to fight to get to Ohio State. But guess what? Your son going there because he came up here.
I just got one more question that I'd be interested to know just from your perspective, and because of the amount of success that you had as a player, what was the most enjoyable part of that process for you? Because you have some guys that are very proficient, and the athletic part is just a natural talent for them. So
Right.
what they do is just natural. It's a gift, right?
Right.
But in that process of playing the game and playing it in the manner that you did, what was the most enjoyable aspect of it for you as a player?
The most enjoyable part was 100% being in shape. I never came off the field. I played on everything. I played on everything except for one thing. I hated to return punts. Even though I could do it, I hated it. I'm a vision back. So for me, when the ball's hanging up in the air so long, I am not paying attention to the ball. I'm looking at where I want to go. So that don't work out well with a punt returner because I'm trying to see what I'm going to do. I'm calculating my moves before the balls even drop. That don't work for me. So I played on kickoff team, kickoff return. I played on the punt team. I played on the field goal team. I played on the all hands team. I always started defense and I started offense. I never remember ever while I was at Chaney High School. I never remember being tired in a football game ever. So I feel like that's one thing, and I always give Coach Burtis the props to this. Two things that I know that he is. Number one, he is the best at team cohesion. Like when I'm talking about, he can get a Southside kid that might be a little rough around the edges, might be a little hood, might be a little something to go with the corniest West Side cat ever, and you love that dude to death, and have y'all like this, where you willing for that dude to come chill on the cleat, and he live on the good part of the West Side. You know what I'm saying? Or you comfortable enough to be hanging up around Meridian and all that, being a Southside kid. You get what I'm saying? Like, and that's the first thing. The second thing is, man, that dude knew how to get you in shape, running 330s, running through the gauntlet, mirror drill, like all of that stuff. Like, like we were so conditioned that, I mean, that was another reason why we just trampled people, man. We were so in shape, man. Like everybody that I played with was in shape, man, even down to the linemen. I mean, I remember running plays, and I just told this to my head coach, Coach Culliver. I just told this to him. I said, man, I look at sports. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at if we had a sled and I got a couple good backs that I got over East right now. I said, man, I just know. I mean, sometimes the old school ways still work. I said, man, well, we don't run 20 plays, and man, the boys hit that flare, drive it 20 yards, and the backs run it, and he got to score every time. So it don't matter where you at. And the coach is kind of like, man, like I mean, he didn't say it wasn't a bad idea. You know what I mean? But that really worked for us because, and I told my backs, I said, my coach had me doing this. I was just having a conversation with him. I said my coach had me doing this because I mean, I was never tired when I broke an 80-yard touchdown because I had to go back on kickoff and then had to go and play safety. So I had time to get no rest. You know what my rest was? After I scored and everybody beat me up after the touchdown, grab a little bit of water, go up on kickoff, and get ready to run down. My break was jogging down, hoping the kicker kicked it either in the end zone or, we made the tackle around the 20-25. That was my rest. You know what I'm saying? So, you got to be in shape for that. So I would say being in shape, man. Like there's a lot that goes with it. Like when you're a skilled athlete and you have all the intangibles to be a great ball player, but being in shape is something totally different. You know, and I tell my guys this that I train. Imagine being, and kids get mad when I say this to them. I said, imagine being an 81 overall. They're like, damn, Coach Ed, you don't think I'm like a 90 or a 95 or, because they want their rating to be high, right? And I say, imagine being an 81 overall. And they're like, all right, where are you going with this? And I say, first quarter, you play the best kid from Maslin, and he's a 97, right? And you play DN, and he play offensive tackle, right? But you at 81. Yeah, he at 97. First couple plays, he's standing you up a little bit. He inside you and all that. But remember, you come to Coach Ed, we predicate to being in shape, in the best shape. Everybody get practice. It's what you do after practice, right? So I don't care what everybody else gets. Everybody gets practice. So if you get 3 hours of practice, everybody get that. That's average. I don't care how hard you work at practice. That's still average because everybody still gets them same 3 hours, right? But now, what you do afterwards to be in that tip-top shape. So now you're 81. After them first couple plays, dude might not be at 97 no more, right? Second quarter come, he might be at 87, right? So now your 81 looking real good versus, right? Going into halftime, my dude might be a 77. You still at 81. You still coming. Now you done made some plays. Now you feeling good about yourself. Halftime. Y'all go in. Halftime. It's 14-14, right? When you come out after halftime, you still at 81. My dude is a 62 now. So now third quarter, you smacking that ass, right? All right. So now fourth quarter comes. Game still a little close though. You know what I'm saying? But you killing that big dog though, right? Fourth quarter comes. My dude a 42 overall. You still rolling that 81. You know what that 81 overall look like versus that 40 something? Man, that dude shouldn't even be on the field with you. But guess what? He ain't never had to work that hard because he ain't never played against a dude that's 81 overall every single play. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't got to be the best football player. If you in shape to play that game at that level the whole time, I tell my kids, there's three things I want from you. I want muscle strength, muscle endurance, and muscle stamina. They three totally different things. I said, there's a lot of dudes. I said, go to the gym. Just watch somebody. You'll watch a dude come in that look phenomenal. He get on the weights. He there for 35 minutes. And he gone, right? Then you got the guy that's in there. He in there for 2 hours, but he ain't lifting shit. But he in there for 2 hours. He working hard, but he ain't really lifting nothing, right? Then you got the guy that's in there that look good, that's in there for that hour and a half, and he's strong. So now, when y'all stand next to each other, totally different feeling. You know what I'm saying? Same thing on the football field. When you stand next to that dude that got all three, you know you in trouble. Because you everybody that played against that cat, everybody right now know that there's a cat out there that you played against in your life that you like, man, he He was just flat out better than me.
Absolutely.
Everybody played him. I know who mine is right now. The best dude I played against in high school, best athlete I played against was Tremaine Riley from Walsh Jesuit. I'll never forget him. And I know who it was in basketball. Warrensville Heights, J.K. Swift bust my ass for 45 points after we won districts. I could not check this dude at all. And there was nothing, I don't care what the coaches were saying, turning this way, facing this way, it didn't make no difference. He was flat out better than me. Yeah, granted, he was a senior, I was a sophomore. That could have been a little bit of it, but I don't care. At that point, I can't change my age. I can't change that. He was flat out better than me. Tremaine Riley, do you remember him playing for Walt Jesuit? They had a one man show, and that dude was sweet.
Yeah, I remember them. They got in the playoffs at like 4-6. It was like I talked to you the other night. Either he was hurt or their quarterback was hurt, and they
Yeah,
came back in the
but if
playoffs, and it was
I'm telling you, that was the best dude I played against. His name was Tremaine Riley. Listen, them names you don't forget. Hey, wherever he is in the world, hey dog, you was the best dude I ever played against. I don't care what nobody say. He was tough. But like I'm man enough to say that. You know what I mean? And I'm probably that guy for some guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably that guy. Like you know, I I mean I've seen some wild stuff happen. You know what I mean? Like I've seen guys that that should have been something, or I get older and then I go back and I scratch my head and I say, man, at that time I thought dude was this, but when I measure it up, man, I was way better than him. You know what I'm saying? Like I've done
yeah,
that too. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But that's just the time frame behind it. At some point, like we all grow up seeing somebody and you see them on this platform, and you like, man, dude, good. And then when it's your turn, and then you start playing, you kind of revert back, and then you say, hold on. But when I got to his level, I I was above him. I was above him.
Yeah, there's definitely that the human part of the athlete that is always um and I know nobody ever admits insecurity, but I think that fear and that insecurity is probably what makes people great, right? Is to
Yeah,
to overcome that
right.
and so yeah, right, everybody views the other person as this monster, and then when you get a chance to kind of step back and look, you think, well, okay, wasn't really
Yeah,
the boogeyman that I created. um so we've been going for 2 hours, Ed, and we could
yeah.
probably go for two
Oh
more.
man.
But the way we wrap this up is, the one more down title is really the theme of this whole thing. And so,
Mhm.
looking back at your playing career, your life, your experiences, um in high school and college and youth and in your training, whatever it may be, if you had one more down to go back, suit up, run the ball, do whatever it is you want to do, where would it be and who would it be with?
If you would have asked me these questions years ago, I would have gave you a total rundown where I would have went, who I would have played for, what number I would have wore, all of that. But right now, today, in hindsight, I think I'm gonna stay right here, man. I think I'm gonna stay right here, man. I got all the war wolves. I think look, I don't even got no room. Look how many stickers I got. That's all for
Yeah,
one
wow.
season. I'm covered. I'm everywhere. And the reason being is because where my life took a turn where some people would say it's bad, or by me going to prison and all of that, and like all the negative things that happen, like I told you before, it's my makeup, and I wear it every day. And because it's my makeup, I wouldn't change one thing, because if I change one thing, I might not be the man I am today. And I like the man that I am today. And I feel like it made me a better friend. I feel like it made me a better brother, made me a better son. It definitely made me a better father. You know what I'm saying? And feel like it's making me a better football coach because I feel like the glory is still good if I can give a kid or my kid or any kid for that matter what I've been through and show them the ropes. Because if I didn't go through those trials and tribulations, I wouldn't be able to tell them how to overcome it because I had never physically seen it. So yeah, I wouldn't trade my hardships, so to say, for anything else because my makeup that I'm wearing right now is special because I know why I'm here. I know my purpose. My purpose is to help young men and women and and I like what I do. I like what I do because I see so much of me in so many kids. And that's why I am at East. Because, I would love to be at a Canfield where anything you say is yes sir and they just go do it. But that's unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like I want the kid I kinda gotta shake up a little bit, help him get his grades together. I had to go pick two kids up for practice today. You know what I'm saying? And imagine if I wouldn't have went and got him. Anything could have happened to him. So nah, I wouldn't change nothing. My last down was my last down that I took. You know what I'm saying? And man, I thank you guys, man. Like I'm blessed. Um, you know what I mean? Like I had a I had a great career, and I can't take back what I done. You know what I'm saying? And I like it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like I got good memories. I met some great friends. I got some great coaches. I meet some past legends from my alma mater. Like so, all of this great. You know what I mean? And even seeing like my little cousin and the two kids that I coached, DJ Waller and Jason Hewlett from they going to Michigan. How big is that for Youngstown? How big is that for Chaney? So think about this. If I go back and change something, right? It ain't special for them.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? I'm, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud of that.
And I
I'm proud
think
to say
that,
I coached them though.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, at the end of the day, everybody has their last down, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's how we want it or thought it would be or not. And we have to come to terms with our life after competition,
Right,
sports.
right.
And like I've told you before, like for me personally, at this point in my life, I respect any man who has done that
Hmm.
and is satisfied and is passing that on to his kids or the kids under his care, like in your case, right? Like making those relationships now that 20 years from now, they're going to come to you and say, hey, thanks for everything
Right.
you did. You poured into me and coached me. So, that's the end of the day, right? As long as you're happy with yourself and you feel like
For sure.
I'm doing, like you said before, my calling, that's
Yeah.
all that matters,
Yeah,
period.
for sure. One more thing. Like just with everybody that I've met over the years, and like the game has brought football has brought you know people together. And I heard something my coach said the other day, and he said, "You can't name me a star athlete or a great athlete who didn't want to be coached up. They always want to be coached up. They always want to be critiqued. They always want to be. It's always happened. Like just go back and take a look at yourself. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things, it all comes back to somebody telling you or putting you in a position to be successful. You know what I mean? And now I'm that guy. I transitioned from the kid to the man to where that's just it. Like, I, and it's okay to be on this end. You know what I mean? Like I want to be the one cheering on. You know what I mean? Like like my days of running is over. If you go, you got all of the highlight films. Last lap, right?
Hmm.
I can watch our whole highlight film I cannot watch the last lap. I can't. It makes me
Really?
too emotional, and it has nothing to do with the football. It has nothing to do with the football. Absolutely nothing. It has nothing to do with, oh, I'm not going to run a touchdown. I'm not going to, man, it has everything to do with everything that I've ever accomplished. It happened because of the game. You know what I mean? Because of
Mhm.
the game of football. You know, the religion part of it. You know what I mean? Football is a great game. Think about it right now. If we go watch basketball right now, and we watch the NBA, we watch the Celtics play tomorrow, and Jason Tatum shoot a three, and then he get down and start praying, that's gonna make crazy headlines, and people are gonna say, "Why did he do that?" And it's gonna be all different type of things, right? But in the game of football, you pray before, do score touchdowns, kneel and pray, do pray after, and it's never frowned upon ever. Think about that game. Think about any other sport. Even in baseball, like if a dude hits a home run, he might do his little thing real quick, but like he can't get down on one knee. It's gonna throw the whole game off. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because the way the game was put together was God and football as one. They made that together. Like it kind of came together. So like even with like Coach Burgess, like people don't realize like you said prayers. You know what I mean? Like I can even remember going back to little league teams. Like everybody prayed. I don't care how hood a team was or how prissy a team was. They all kind of revert back to the same thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm a God fearing man. And I don't bark on nobody's different religions or none of that. I'm just saying that the in our game puts us in different uh in different realms where it's not just about football. It's about everything else that the game teaches. You know what I mean? How to take constructive criticism, how to work well with others. Like and it suits you for life. Like this game suits you for how life's going to be. And I told you, I do my day to day off of how I was taught how to be a football player. You know what I mean? Hard working, give it your all, do it to death. Like that's my main thing. Like if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it to death. You know how I am, coach. If I'm gonna match, I'm gonna match to the T. Everything's gonna match. You know what I'm saying? If I drive a car, everything's gonna be. You know how I am. Like so, if I'm gonna do something, I'm going all the way. I'm not a halfway
Right.
guy. I'm not gonna. Ah, I'm just gonna kind of get in there
I'm
a
a
little bit.
I'm gonna pop in on you here. My
Yeah,
battery is about to cut on here, but I wanted to make
yeah, yeah.
sure that I extended my appreciation to you.
Oh no, I
You
appreciate
know,
you too, man.
a pleasure getting to get on here and hear your perspective, and then this ending part, you expressing yourself and taking that direction and that viewpoint that you did in terms of your one more down. It shows the growth in your manhood.
Right,
So these opportunities that you have to influence kids and get that privilege of coaching and still be attached to the game, don't take them lightly, because you don't know where you can take this to in terms of that next level. You don't know if you really invest and study and keep growing and expanding and pushing your own self, you might get a whole set of new downs for yourself to
right,
keep doing, what you said is your purpose, is your why. So, take that just as seriously as anything else that you've ever done, whether it be a 4th and 1, a chance to reposition yourself. Uh,
mhm,
some of what you said in terms of being vulnerable and open, in terms of the mistakes that you've made in your life that put you on that path where you had to sit down for a second. So many have done it, so many have come back from it. Just keep forging ahead, stay grounded in those values, that were put in your path by your pops. Some of the teachings that we all got from Coach Burtis in terms of, God, family, program, education.
right.
Use those things to keep influencing those kids. And then, in terms of how you speak about your sons, it's one thing to sit and listen to a story, but the truth is in between the lines of what a person says. So when I sit back and I hear how you explain how your dad watched over you, it's what a father's supposed to do. He's shepherding his kid. He can't tell
Right.
him all the answers because that would rob him of the experience, right?
Sure. For sure.
Your son's carrying on your legacy and doing it in a real way in the spots that you weren't able to for yourself, and that's even greater than if
Oh,
you
for
would have got
sure.
all the glory
100%.
for you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
you know, just if nobody says it to you, just recognize those nuggets of gold that you got going on for yourself right
Hmm.
now today. You know what I mean?
Right.
Expand on them, keep growing them, keep pushing. You know, you still that warrior. You just ain't toting the football around no more.
Right.
You running over real life obstacles and real life decisions. Keep being great, man.
I
Because
appreciate it, man. I
no,
appreciate it, Ron. That's good, man.
it's genuine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, for sure.
a lot of people get to circumvent and hide behind a facade. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You're one of those rare people that you meet in life that has had to go through real tough things and endure where the rest of us don't. You know what I mean? We haven't had those hard bumps that have made people look at us in a different way where we get to hide behind the facade still.
Hmm.
That's been removed for you so you can be your true authentic self and be unapologetic about it. So expand upon that, man. Use that to your advantage. Keep being passionate, keep spreading your message, and keep attacking your goals, man, because life is a marathon.
Right. Yeah.
So
I
appreciate you,
appreciate it,
man.
Ron. Thanks, man. Hey, Coach Saunders, thanks for having me on too, man. Hey, I
Yeah,
want you guys to
absolutely.
watch out for my kid, man. The kid I was telling you about, Brian Robinson, man. He's gonna be a superstar, man. He's putting in the work, man. He's that 81 overall. I don't care if you hear me say he that 81 overall. That's that's what I was speaking about. That's that 81 overall. You know what I mean?
Well,
Have a good night, man. Hey, I appreciate you too, bro.
Absolutely.
All right, Coach Saunders, man.
all
I'll
right,
talk
Ed,
to
I'll
y'all.
talk to you, man.